am nothing. He takes a step forward, shaking his head twice with absolute conviction. You're not nothing, Nova.
That was one of the things he says to her when he first sees what she does. Disclaimer, my pronunciations suck. Miss Keary Taylor, I deeply apologize. And anyone else who has read the series, if I mispronounce anything, please forgive me. My husband jokes all the time that I'm his, quote, foreign wife, and I mispronounce and spell in my own creative way. So, please forgive me. I apologize. This is the Neron Rising Saga by Keary Taylor. Hello, all, and my husband. So, I have decided that I read too many books and watch way too many shows with my husband and my girls to not make summaries over some of them, because I don't have enough time in the world, and gosh knows he doesn't have enough time in the world to read and watch all of the same stuff I do. So, I'm going to go over in a kind of brief summary with my little flair what exactly Keary Taylor's Neron series is about. The first book is called Neron Rising. And oh my gosh, I have loved all 4 books. So this first one I am going to describe to you, and I would like my husband at the end to give his opinion if he would continue with the book series. It's a fantasy romance, but it doesn't fully start off that way. The book starts off with the main character, who is Nova Ainsley, and she's kind of this punky / rebel girl. She didn't really start off that way though either. She really was just kind of on her planet, an average girl. But she was always craving for more. And you definitely get invested in her character because of this. So, she lives on the planet Korpillion with her father, Neron, she's been working in secret for months, building highly illegal weapons. And these weapons wield Neron, which is now a rare mineral and resource in the galaxy. So she finds her sense of self in this new job, right? And we find that she even broke off things with her long-term ex-partner, but now best friend, Zane, to do this weapons job against her better judgment and his wishes, as well as her own feelings, I guess you could say, about the whole situation of the illegal activity in which he's doing. But she finds that sense of self there, and that helps. So while she and Zane, after they broke up and aren't talking, there's this random stranger in the book, a male voice that just in her head, and it's just like, hello? And it kind of freaks her out. I mean, what person wouldn't think that would freak them out? At first I would say, hey Google, is that you? And you would realize it's not Google. But he's just as surprised as she is. And throughout kind of the first half of the book, you notice that they don't know each other's names. They barely know much about each other. It's kind of just brief summaries about their thoughts and feelings, very vaguely, of their everyday life. Like, she is saying to this random gentleman who has popped in her head that she's not happy, that she's bored with her everyday life. And he kind of tells her, sometimes the mundane is good. She highly disagrees. And thus, the weapons job. That he doesn't know about. So, the story goes on after her and Zane have, made up and decided to keep things mutual and just be friends, with overhearing from her regular day job in the mines that Dominion, the brutal force in which is overtaking the galaxy to take all of the sources of Neron from the planets, will be visiting their planet soon. She is very taken aback by this news because she's upset. Like, why isn't anybody running? Why isn't anybody leaving the planet? As Dominion is kind of known for not only sucking the planet out of the resource of Neron, but also destroying and harming people in the process. Using not only their giant forces of military, but also using Valen, who is the last Nero. Nero, in this case, can not only use Neron, but they also can read people's minds and see the future, as well as destroy planets. Cerilius is Dominion's leader, and he has been using the Nero named Valen to do just this. But in doing so, there becomes a predicament we find out later on in the series. So, overhearing this news about Dominion coming to her planet of Korpillion, she immediately is freaking out, counting all of her pennies, dimes, and nickels, trying to scrape together the money to figure out how to get her father, Tyron, and her ex-boyfriend / best friend, Zane, who are the only two people in the planet that seem to care about her, off of this planet, so that they can be safe. But she may have to quit her day job for that. So while going over her pennies, nickels, and dimes, she realizes there is no way, unless she quits this day job, that she can make enough money for the three of them. So she has her every day sit and have a drink at the pub with her best friend Zane, but best friend, still confused by this, but she is having a drink with him, and she kind of makes a joke stating, how much do you have in your pocket? And he's like, come on, you have more than me. You have that side hustle going around for you. And she's like, no, I'm being serious right now. He thinks she's totally joking, right? But she's definitely not. And so she kind of just flats out tells him, like, look, Dominion's coming here. And I've been planning this for a while. I have X amount of money, which is a lot of money for a normal person on their planet, but not enough for the three of them. And he's like, oh. And she's like, yeah, so here's my plan. And she tells him, I'm quitting my day job because I factored it in. Depending on how much money you have, maybe we can make it off the planet in a year. And Dominion, if they're on schedule, we'll be here in 3. So we'll be clear by at least a year, even if we're cutting it short. So her and Zane agree, And of course, don't tell Dad. But that's the plan, to get off the planet. Later on in the story, it's only a few days that passes, like maybe a week, max. We see that she is working full-time on this weapons job. She is backdooring the crap out of that random dude in her head who keeps knocking on her door. How are you? How are you? I'm busy right now. I'm busy right now. When she does have time to talk to him, it's a lot of expletives. Words. Because she keeps fumbling with, items and almost burning herself to a crisp. But, it's making the money to get her off this planet, and she's trying to be in a rush. So she's working on these illegal weapons for her employer, which she works with kind of 5 people. It's very, very close-knit. She doesn't have a lot of people that go into the circle. So there's unnamed characters, but the main person who is actually working with her is Rena, and she's the weapons distributor. So she's the one in charge of, hey, there's an order for this. So she's in charge of actually talking to the people about what they need, what they want, etc. And she also was always trying to get Nova to work full-time with her because she saw what Nova could create, and there's demand, of course, for these products. So, business. She'll come up later in the story, so just pickpocket her name. But, so, while Nova is working on these weapons, everybody in her small knit group of people of these weapons manufacturer / distributors, they are out while she's working on these materials. Zane stops by to check to see if she needs some food and just to check on her. However, they hear a commotion coming from outside. And unfortunately, even though it's just been, a week or so, Dominion's already here. They see this giant ship in the sky, and everybody knows it. It's this big, black, huge ship that overtakes the entire sky. And it's a huge gut punch. But not only that little bit of surprise, but Nova also randomly gets a huge, enough to take 20 plus people off the planet kind of amount of money into her bank account, and randomly a message giving her an address. She has no idea what this is about, but her only thought is, I've got to go get my father. So her and Zane go on this little spree, running across town to go get her dad. Everybody's in mass chaos, staring at the sky, going, oh my gosh, that big black ship. And she and Zane are not dealing with any of it. They are getting closer and closer to the building in which her father works at. And he is an engineer, and he works in the building right next to the government building. And in front of the government building, they see about 4 people on their knees. And, well, Dominion has sent down its main leader, Cerilius, and their Nero, Valen, who are now in front of these captives. Cerilius makes this speech, and Nova can't help but to overhear and listen and wait with Zane to hear what they're gonna say before, getting her father and getting the heck out of there. He makes these smooth and savvy comments about how they come in peace and they don't want to hurt anyone. But these three people who are sitting in front of them, kneeling, execution style, are and have went against Dominion in selling and distributing illegal weapons. Of course, when Nova hears this, her eyes get wide. Not only hearing that, oh my gosh, that could have been me, but also because they have these people, I guess you could call them, but they're called the Korpillion, and they have eaten Neron, and when a person eats Neron, they look like almost death itself, like a Death Eater almost, where they have like the black eyes and grayed skin, kind of Lord Voldemort style, where they're just really creepy and kind of look like The Walking Dead or vampire, anything of the sort. And when she sees them, everybody's silent because they are also controlled by Dominion, and the Dominion uses them to gain information. The Korpillion puts their hands on these three who are on their knees, extracting the memories of everything that person has seen and done. So they're in a lot of trouble because the leader, and Valen, mostly Dominion's leader, states that essentially he is now looking for the arrest of Rena, the weapons distributor, and the woman rebel is what they call her, because even amongst her peers, which she made the weapons with and gave the weapons to then distribute and distributed these weapons with, do not know what she looks like. She masked herself in charcoal on her eyes anytime she went out and covered her face so that no one would know what she looked like. So they have no idea what her name is or any of that. Korpillion is looking for her, essentially. She's in shock and
Wait,
scared.
So she's the woman rebel.
She is the woman rebel.
Oh, okay. So
And they know what she looks like when she's all, done up in a rebel outfit, but they don't know who she is.
Okay.
So, it's good. It's better, but it's still a rough process. We're working through this series. And this book, she's then after the Nero, Valen, is instructed by Korpillion. He takes the Neron and places it into a spear and strikes it through these three civilians, essentially. Not only in front of the government building, but this government building is also filled with a school, which houses multiple children and women in it. She pushes past all of these people at that point and goes to get her father. And her father doesn't know what's going on, but he knows it's bad because her face is scared. And she's not the person to scare easily. So she tells him, Dominion's here. And his automatic response is, we gotta go. All three of them don't have much. They don't need much. And basically, the only things that Nova is carrying is some of the weapons either that she made for herself, one being a staff, and one being an axe. And her father, and Zane sneak out the back to then run to try and find a plane. She mentions to her father and Zane how she was sent this location, and there also is a message reading, use this to get off the planet. So she doesn't know who sent it. It doesn't have any information besides that. And that's exactly where she's going. So, on the journey to where the planes are located, or rockets, or ships, or whatever you want to call them, are located, her father, and Zane get split up. Because in the mass chaos and what the type of people Dominion are, not only do they, quote, not come in peace, but they also cause a lot of destruction to the buildings and towns around them. So buildings are physically falling down. And how the city is set up is all the buildings are stacked on top of each other. And you kind of have to hike everywhere to the point your legs just burn. Everyone who lives there is kind of used to it, but and luckily, she is not harmed by the debris, but she is separated from Zane and her father. She calms to her father and Zane, stating she will meet them at the platform, keep going, because she doesn't want them to stop, just in case. And she is now having to climb over all of this debris. While doing so, 2 big chunks of debris come almost landing on top of her. Freaking out, she puts her hands up and tries to, what can you do at that point? Shield yourself and wait for the inevitable end. And she realizes it's not coming. Frozen in her tracks, she's kind of just like, what? And looks up to see that she is hovering these 2 giant boulders or pieces of building above her, and just moves her hand over and sets them down. She hears a cough, or kind of like it's just kind of like she hears someone behind her, like there's someone behind her, so she turns around and she sees Valen, that Nero who she just saw kill those 3 innocent people. He takes off his mask and says, Nova, I thought I told you to get out of here. So not only is she stunned by the fact that she just did whatever that was, but also for the fact that how does he know who I am? What is going on right here? And then you kind of see the character click, where she's like, oh my gosh, that's who I was talking to in my head. Because she recognizes his voice when he speaks to her. And it sounds the same as the person in her brain. And she gets upset because she's like, this is why you wouldn't tell me your name? Because Nova, her name, is very common in the universe. And that's why it's ironic, because she's super common. But his name, Valen, is one that everybody knows, because he's hated by most of the galaxy for what he does for Dominion. So he comes up to her, and she backs up because, of course, she's afraid. Like, this guy just murdered 3 people she worked with. And so she's kind of just like, how could you not tell me? How could you not tell me, like, you were coming here? How could you not warn me? You knew where I lived, because he knew what planet she was on. And he goes, that's why I couldn't give you my name. And I sent you the money and a location. You need to go. And she's close to tears when he hugs her, just to comfort her. And she and him both get a flash, kind of like a vision, where they can see themselves in a world where he not only is the Neron king, but she is kind of a queen of sorts to work for Dominion, the all-powerful villain, essentially, empire. And she's disgusted. But the character's conflicted when she goes over this vision, because she wants, it seems so nice. Everything feels at home, like, with Valen. And so she's so conflicted because she doesn't want that to come true. Everything but the fact that Valen was with her. And so they both pull back, and he says again, you have to go. And he uses his Neron to clear her a path from all of the debris, taking her to the landing pad, which she's going to leave from. And he has a plane set and ready for her, which is nice. I'm just saying. She's going over in her head while she's sprinting and running away from this situation that just occurred in her life. One of the biggest changes that has ever happened to her. And she not only had one big thing actually happen to her, but two. She runs into Rena, who is the weapons distributor, not less than 10 feet away from where she just was. And Rena stops her, basically tackling her, saying, you're taking me with you. And she stops, knowing that Rena just saw all of that. And just pauses for a moment. Rena continues and is like, I know you have a way off this planet. You're taking me with you. And it's kind of like an unspoken thing in between her and Rena that nothing that just occurred, Rena will speak about if she gets off the planet. And she and Rena go ahead to the landing pad and meet with her dad and Zane, who are already there waiting for them. They didn't actually go into the landing pad because they were waiting for her, since the ship's in her name. So they go into the landing pad and all climb aboard this ship, and all of them are just sitting there, and the robot who powers and controls the ship is asking them where they want to go. And they've been planning where they wanted to go for months. However, with everything that just occurred, Nova has no clue where to go. And that, my friends, after the ship sails or flies out of her planet atmosphere and continues far enough away from Dominion to be safe, they all explain themselves a little bit. Rena explains who she is, why she's there, not mentioning the fun interaction that just occurred with Nova and the Nero, Valen, or the fact that Nova can control Neron and may also be a Nero. It's still not spoken yet, but so, from my brief synopsis of the book, what do you think? Is this a book that you would continuously read? You would want to know how the characters continue? I mean, do you guys think that her vision is actually a vision of the future? Or do you think, like, how is this character Nova gonna handle all of this? I mean, come on, honey. Would you read this book now that I have given my brief synopsis of, what happens?
So I obviously heard snippets of this as you were listening to it, and you told me quite a bit about it.
Yeah.
I didn't know everything. I honestly don't think I knew anything about the first book.
Yeah.
I think you literally listened to it in 1 or 2 days.
But don't get spoilers.
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm not. I'm just saying that I don't even remember the first. I don't remember anything from the first book that you told me about it. It's mainly, honestly, I think the third or the fourth, the last one I listened to the most with you.
Yeah. We were doing a lot of house.
Yeah.
Up, getting back into our home.
Yes. But no, I think personally, as I like to read a lot, listen nowadays as well. Different stories. We do listen to a lot of the same stuff, but I
like my smut stuff a little bit more.
I mean, I also introduced you to some smut stuff. So, yeah. Acheron and Styx. I would listen to I would read more of it. I think that the world building, as you said, from what I know and from what you've said, is very in depth, and it also leads to questions of the Neron and the Nero and
how all of it connects.
How it all connects and how it's used for weapons and technology and all this stuff. That myself, I love world building. It's one of my favorite aspects of any series. I really like that aspect of how it's used for magic and technology. That seems kind of unique. I know it's not unique, but it's more unique than other tropes that are out there.
Yeah.
That in and of itself, I think, is very interesting and would get me to read more. Romance, I'm a sucker for romance. Yes, I'm a guy. Doesn't matter. It's the reason why you married me.
I love romance books.
And the relationship seems very interesting because they become friends first through a mental connection. Never seeing each other, never meeting each other, nothing. Very much like you and I first met.
Yeah.
And then he's all of a sudden this big, bad, scary, evil dude. And I'm really curious as to where that goes. Did she know who Valen was, though? Valen, sorry.
She knows who he is because he's on every single news channel. Everybody knows who he is. So there was no way for him to tell her.
Yeah,
even just his name, because it's so known over the whole galaxy.
So she knows of the atrocities that he's wrought. She knows of
everything.
Question. Does the romance get in the way of the storyline, or does the storyline get in the way of the romance or anything like that? Or is it pretty equal, or does it phase in and out?
So that's one of the reasons I love this series, is because you find in a lot of sci-fi romances or romance books in general, but it kind of flows with it. It does center itself a lot around the romance, but it also centers itself a lot around Nova herself and that character kind of finding herself in exactly who she is. Because, I mean, the first book, she found out a part of herself she had no idea. And she was thinking that she wanted more her entire life. And she's now been opened up to this whole new experience. So you know Nova a little bit by the first book, by who she was, but you learn who she is. And you learn with her, which is really cool because not only you learn with her about herself, but also her love life and how her her love life, and everyone in her life kind of affect the plot line and go about doing things. But the most important is not really the romance, is about Nova herself. And that's what the first book kind of touches on, is about how Nova is wanting more and how she feels like she was meant for more. And at first it's illegal activity. And then you kind of see how that grows for her as a person. And it's really awesome to see a character have a lot of character growth, and it's not just little and only based on their love life, because it's also based on her character, how she views the world, her inner conflicts, about her own views, how her love life is contributing with that, but also how she is thinking about the consequences of everything, not just herself and her own actions, but everything that goes on around her and how those actions might affect everybody else. But it's very cool. I mean, I love this series. I don't know if I did it justice, but I loved the series. Keary Taylor, in my opinion, writes amazing books, though. It's definitely a fantasy romance. Not as smutty as most romance novels, but it's very, very teen romance. I liked it a lot more, surprisingly, than I liked Hunger Games. In my opinion, the world building in it, the way she does it, is beautiful, because she really goes in depth with how Dominion kind of runs everything. And of course I didn't have enough time, or honestly enough detail, to go in full explanation like Keary Taylor does. But if you do have the time, or if you like to listen, which is mostly how I get my books nowadays, since I have children and I'm busy, if you like to listen and you can listen and work, reading or listening to an audiobook is awesome. But the way she details everything is very, very beautifully. And she definitely wraps it up in a nice little package for you. So you can ask questions, and it's open-ended at the end of each of the books, but you never, by the end of the series, all of the questions have been answered. You're not still wondering, well, what happened with that little plot hole? Like, that was important and I knew it was important, but you just kind of left it out there, which I feel like a lot of teen romances do. And it was nice. It was a nice series.
No, they're available on YouTube, right?
Yeah, her audiobooks are available on YouTube. And again, like I said, they're awesome. And then also, I know her books are available on, I know you can get them on Amazon, but I'm pretty sure you can get them on your Kindle and other resources too. But she has a lot of good book series that I'm definitely wanting to touch on, because she's a beautiful writer. I may be mispronouncing it,
No, it's okay.
but it's called the Korpillion.
The Korpillion. Okay.
And they have like these black eyes, and their fingers, they said, like, just look like, I always imagine like people with the really long nails and like all the way down here. Like, that's how I imagined them when she was describing them in the books, because I thought like Death Eater vibes, but you can see the person, so almost Death Eater meets Voldemort, but with hair and a nose.